And we're live. Welcome to Unratified, a civic revival. I am Matt. And we're live.
Hey,
Welcome
everybody.
to
I'm Josh.
Unratified,
We're
a
your
civic
hosts.
revival. I am
Uh,
Matt.
we're about to take you on a journey through the heart of American democracy. Strap in.
Strap in. This is true. So we want to do a quick intro about our podcast and what we're doing. This podcast that we're going through with here is about uh, what America could be if it actually lived up to our ideals of what democracy could be, um, and what we feel our country should be like instead of the way that it is now.
Yeah, so we are definitely not here to preach. The last thing I ever want to do is tell somebody how to live their life. So um, we are here to get curious. We want to ask a lot of questions. Um, Try to challenge everyone's assumptions, get everybody involved in the conversation, and just possibly spark a civil revival, civic revival.
So, yeah,
Whoops.
key words there.
Yeah,
Civic revival.
yeah.
We're me and Josh have known each other for a few years, going on about five now, and we've had many long discussions about different parts of uh, different parts of the way our country is run. The policies that have been created, enacted, and what those policies are, what they mean to the people, and how we feel as constituents, you know how to make those better, how to bring them forth into the 21st century. Both of us have an IT background, so we're familiar with a lot of the technology that's out there, and we just want to. We see a lot of potential in what we could do, and we want to work with our communities and talk to everyone out there and say, okay, what do you feel about these policies, and how do we move forward with our country and what we want it to be?
Yeah. And again, Matt said we've known each other for 5 years in our IT backgrounds, and so we in that background we look at systems. We look at IT and technology is just another system, and so through that background, we've also done that. We have a shared experience in that we've looked at like government and society as as another system, and how the different ways that it's uh, hel- I guess helping us and pushing us forward in a positive way, but also how some of those systems are and policies are sort of eroding
Mm-hmm.
our value systems. Um,
Yeah, no,
we go ahead.
no, it's just so our whole idea behind this podcast is, what if we could start fresh? What if we could reimagine the foundation, build from not from scratch, but build on what was already put in place and make it better. Bring it to where you have the involvement of the people, because you can do that now with technology. Bring it up to where you get people from all walks of life that put their values into a document, and not just a room full of 30, 40, 50 people that may or may not understand the everyday person's struggles and the things that they go through. So that's what this podcast is about, is to talk about those things, look at policies, and ask those questions. Um, how do we build that up?
Yeah, and so we're not trying to tweak policies.
Yeah,
We're not trying to fix what's already there.
yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with the cynicism out there, and I think there's just a lot of people, including us,
Mm-hmm.
that are just fed up to a certain degree with where things are heading and the way things are going.
Yeah.
So we want to completely rethink the blueprint of how we live and how we treat each other and what
And
that means.
the coolest thing is we are inviting everybody to come with us on this journey. It's not just about us. It's not just about what we think. We want this to be an open discussion. We want to have people on our podcast to talk about the different parts of how our government works, different policies that are in place, and to to have the community's input, to have everybody co-author this, to have everybody's involvement instead of just a select few, have as many voices as possible to work towards our goal of recreating that foundation.
Yeah, and as we look at those government policies and what I would say is our most highest law and almost our most, I would say, our most revered law in this country, which is the Constitution.
Yes.
We're looking at it from the perspective that it's not just a legal document.
Yeah.
It's literally a reflection of who we are as a society, who we are as a people, and and who we want to be in the future. And we're asking that question as well. Who do we want to be? And we're asking that to everybody, and we want to start a discussion.
Definitely. It's a discussion that we want to see the change in people's opinions. The what we had before and what was created before was created during a time that just doesn't exist anymore. So that the reflection of what was then is not the same as it is now, and we want to see that reflection change. We want to see it updated. We want to bring it to the new.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I want to welcome everybody to Unratified, and looking forward to hearing from everybody.
Definitely. So let's talk about me and Josh. Let's talk about us for a few minutes. Why we're doing this. Our background already mentioned. We're both have an IT background, but who we are and why we're doing this. Josh, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I started out my IT career in the military. I'm an Air Force veteran. Um, spent 8 years doing that. It, saw a lot of things that I liked, a lot of things I didn't. Had quite a bit of experience with government bureaucracy and the way things ran and power structures and whatnot. Um, Decided to move on to corporate, stuck with IT, and just uh, learning along the way. Military definitely shaped me as far as what what I believe in, the things that are important to me, the things that matter. They taught me a sense of camaraderie, a family, and taking care of people. And I try to live my life by that every day. And to be a little bit better at it every single day.
Yeah, we can all try. That's the goal, I think. Um, Me personally, I've been in IT for going on 20 some years now. I I've always tried to look at how to make things better for people. I think that our society as a whole could benefit from people lifting other people up. Um, I've been in roles of leadership, and I've always watched how other people lead. I don't feel that you lead from you lead by telling other people what to do and then don't get in there and do it yourself. I believe that you lead by example. You build people up. You help them. Um, it's a lot easier to succeed when you have everybody around you helping and working towards the same goal than it is if you're just driving people from either a place of fear or a place of authority. it's a lot better to work together to achieve that goal. So through our conversations that that me and Josh have had, and talking about you know our current policies, and why they aren't set forth to be for the common good, to be for the people, to help the people. That is something that I've always wanted to affect in some way. So, after many long discussions, I said, Josh, I'm like, hey, why don't we do a podcast? Why don't we just talk about this? Why don't we get together and sort of lead this change, and see what happens. So that's what we're here. This is and the thing about this isn't about left versus right. I don't want that. I know people have differing opinions, but differing opinions is what makes us great, makes us human, is being able to see things from different ways. Um, I don't. This podcast is not about current events. It's not about what's happening. This is about policy. This is about keeping it human. This is about seeing what we can do to help each other out through policy and making that happen.
Yeah. I love all of that. Love that answer. I want to go back and steal your answer. Um,
Not allowed. Sorry, it's taken.
and just to give you guys a little bit of background about how Matt and I met, he started off as my boss. We work in a cybersecurity gig, doing incident response, long hours, lots of stuff. Started off as my boss, and I think we just naturally. I mean, we naturally clicked pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
After
then,
those 14-hour days, you start to
right?
say things that you don't know what
Yeah,
they are, and things just happen.
yeah. Shit gets weird, man. Like, uh, yeah, yeah, you start to not even remember where you are, you know.
Exactly.
But and I think it just naturally progressed to a friendship. You know, we realized that we had all these shared values and these shared ideas around how life could be better, how it well, and it should be better. And going back to what you said about how it's like you we have all these ideas and we talk about this all the time, and how we need to we should be trying to make a difference. And and so we finally just came to the conclusion, if it doesn't seem like any, as far as we can tell, there's not anybody else doing this, so like why can't it be us? And why shouldn't we do something?
Got to start
uh,
somewhere.
yeah. And yeah, a lot of those conversations, around the status quo, what's going on in the world today, and there's so much hate out there. There's so much negativity,
Yeah.
and first things first, we want to stay as far away from that as possible. Like that is
Yes.
not the kind of that is not the kind of thing that we have any interest in.
Correct.
Uh, and so we're just I think we're just trying to figure out what a real civic conversation looks like in 2025.
Yeah. No, it's
And we want to figure that out with you guys.
exactly. We want to have those open discussions. Like I said, this is about policy. We see different communities trying to do different things, and they make things happen, and unfortunately, they don't get the recognition, or the sort of the kudos that they should. Instead, you see other things happening in the media, and that's what's getting the recognition, based on the fact that it gets people riled up and outraged. Um, I, we want to talk about policy. How do we fundamentally look at our foundation, and how do we make it to where bettering our communities, bettering our systems for that people are in, that people are trying to, survive through. How do we make those systems better? How do we make it more people friendly? We're all just people just trying to make it through. Trying to go to work, trying to, take care of our families, trying to spend time with friends, trying to do all those things. And we want to make it to where instead of, um, you know, hey, Liberty Twitcher, how,
Huh.
how's that going? Welcome to the stream. Um, the defund. See, that's one of those things. And welcome. Thank you for joining us. Defund the police. I I understand what you're saying, and what I want to look at from that perspective is you can say defund the police, but what does that mean from a policy perspective?
Mm.
Are we just going to take all the money away from them? That doesn't make sense. You have to look at from a fundamental perspective of, yes, we can say these big ideals like, I'm going to throw this out there, healthcare for all, or you could say, Second Amendment rights, we should be able to have, everybody should be able to have their own guns. Those are big, sweeping statements. We're talking
Yeah.
about getting down into the nitty gritty of the policy to get down into what does it actually mean. So defund the police, that has a lot of connotations with it. And just like you said, more crime. Does it mean more crime if you defund the police? Yes or no? You can look across the board. From a libertarian perspective, you say, okay, well, I have the right to do this as long as I don't, infringe on somebody else's rights. I should have the right to, do what I want to on my own land. But then you have somebody that calls the police because you're doing something that is illegal or whatever on the land. So we're talking about from the ground up, from what it looks like to allow people to be human, to allow them to be themselves, while also protecting the rights of everybody. Everybody has their right to themselves, and we don't want to take away from that. So defunding the police, I know that there's going to be a lot of this stuff that comes up during our conversations that we have, and we're going to be focused on certain things.
Well, and I think the way that we would approach that, and just to have a short conversation about it, because I definitely don't want to dismiss you.
Yeah,
Is what does that look like? I mean, you defund, it's fun to say things like that or have a thought experiment about it.
yeah,
But there's a generally understood idea that law and order is the basis of a civil or a civil society.
mm-hmm.
And if you disagree with that's fine. I guess we could have that discussion. But so if the police aren't there to maintain law and order, who does it? Do we do it ourselves? Is it like the Wild West where you
You have
get
a
a lynch
sheriff or a
mob?
marshal,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
and
Or
you take the
but
justice into their own
yeah, or you
hands.
take justice into your own hands. Somebody comes on your land, you shoot them, no questions asked, and that's it. I mean, and is that the kind of society that you want to live in? I'm not saying that the police are the answer. There might be another answer out there that we haven't even thought of. But like I said, but just saying. Defund the police. I feel like has to come with some other sort of idea.
And that's one of the things that we want to talk about here is we're not talking about these broad sweeping changes of whatever, you know, uh, these are catchphrases. These are media phrases. This isn't, when you're talking about people that are on, um, you know, the the House floor or the Senate floor saying, you don't put in a bill, defund the police. That's not how that works. So you need to be meticulous about this. You need to talk about the different things. And I know that you have another comment there about tampons in the boys' restrooms. Um, we're there's a lot of outrage about a lot of things right now. We will eventually get to a lot of that stuff, but what we're talking about right now is we need to work on the fundamentals and what our podcast is about, and that is going to be we're starting with we're going to be working through the Constitution from top to bottom to bring it into the 21st century. One of the comments that one of our founding fathers made was, and I believe it was Jefferson, about how the Constitution should be rewritten every so often. That it's not that it's a living document. It's not a hey, this is perfect. We have the best idea, and nobody else is ever going to beat this. There's a reason why there's so many different governments in the world today, and they all have their own different form of government and how they represent their people or don't represent their people. So that's what we're looking to right now. We want to look at the Constitution and start with that foundation. And then as we go along, those questions that you're asking about, we're eventually going to touch on all those, and we're eventually going to have those conversations. Like this is our first episode, and we're just talking about what this podcast is going to be about, what this stream is going to be about, the conversations that we're going to have. And there's a lot of those things that will eventually come up, but we want to make sure that we stay on the topic that we're having at that point, so that we can get through that. You can create these distractions and then nothing gets done, sort of like what happens in our current government. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the points that we're talking about, and we're not walking down some path that's going to get us nowhere in what we're actually trying to get through. So the point of this initial episode is to just say what we're about and talk about that and get people to come join the conversation about what we're going to be talking about and where we're going to be moving forward from here. So I know that so the goal again of this podcast is like I said, to bring everybody together. It's a crazy thing that we talked about. I wanted to bring this to a platform to where we could get input like you, people coming into the conversation and talking about things that what things mean to them. But so what we're trying to do right now is work through that, and we want to ask those questions, and we decided to ask them together and to bring people along. But we're not here as experts. We're here as citizens. We're here as regular everyday people that go to work, come home, that live in this world. I'm not a policy nerd. I'm going to have to research everything we talk about every week as we do different topics and work through the Constitution this season. I'm going to have to do my legwork. I'm going to have to try to understand things and work through stuff. But that's
Yeah,
what
I'm
we're
not
looking
gonna
at.
I'm not gonna do any of that. Like that. That's all gonna be Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to be the one that knows stuff, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how that works. Um,
So what we're trying to dedicate ourselves to is re-examining the foundational structures of American society.
yep.
We're taught, and we want to talk about everything across the board. Like Matt said, obviously we have to start somewhere, and this is a huge topic, and we're hopefully going to be talking about this for a long time.
Yes.
It's not, as it comes to the Constitution, which we decided was going to be our first topic. We want to talk about a lot of different things like dignity rights, different ways of representation, and also, as constituents and as contributing members of society, civic responsibility.
Yes. So that's what unratified a civil revival. That's kind of what we're civic revival. That's what we're trying to do from a civic perspective. We're always going to screw that up, aren't we?
Yeah.
From a perspective of the foundation that we're working with, and then building off of that foundation. Like I said, season 1 is going to be focused on rewriting the Constitution. not in a courtroom, but in the public square. When they originally wrote the Constitution, it was a bunch of lawyers and doctors and high level people that sat around in a room and said, okay, what do we want? And you had a lot of differing opinions. It went on for, I want to say it was a few weeks. They even left and had to come back to write everything. And when they did, it wasn't even perfect when they started. And then there was hey, well, we want to have a Bill of Rights. And I know that the state that I'm from, North Carolina, that I'm in right now, they wouldn't even ratify the Constitution until the Bill of Rights was put together. So nothing is going to be perfect. We're not going to be able to touch every single little detail of everything, but we want to start with the basis of what we already have and then work with people. We're going to start at the preamble. We're going to go straight down the whole thing, have those conversations about those specific parts of the Constitution, and then work through and say, okay, well, what does this mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? What is the wording that was put in by the forefathers, the founders? Hey, what does that mean to the people? How is that interpreted? We leave a lot of interpretation up to the courtroom, up to judges who may or may not be swayed one way or another of what this actually means. We want to try to take the guesswork out of that and write it to where it means something, to where what we're saying is plain, to where it's not to a point to where it can be misconstrued as something else as much as possible. We know that when you say pursuit of life or happiness or whatever, what does that even mean? And there's always room for interpretation, but we want to try to quell that as much as possible and get down to the nitty gritty of, okay, how do people interpret this? How do people interpret what this means? And then put that forth in sort of hey, this is where we think it should be. And then once we get down and we go through the whole Constitution, and we talk about, how people are represented, people's, the rights afforded by the Constitution from a federal level and those types of things. As we're going through and doing that, looking at how the individual feels about all of the different, words and the information that's in there, because I have a feeling a lot of people don't understand half the stuff they read when they read the Constitution. But our founding fathers intended for it to be rewritten often, possibly by every generation. So we're a few generations behind, but we want to bring that forward and look and see what that means. Sorry,
Yeah.
Josh.
No, you're good, man. So like Matt said, we're channeling the founders in the sense that they brought a bunch of people together that were all from very different backgrounds, had varying needs and things that they wanted out of life and responsibilities. And in a few weeks they were able to create a document that they could all mostly agree on and compromise on as far as how they wanted to be governed. And we kind of want to do the same thing, but we want to get as many rather than a select few or the most educated among us. I think it should at this stage in human existence. And with the technology that we have, that the conversation should be available to anyone. And we're not, and for that reason, we're not worshiping them.
Yeah.
They didn't have everything right. They didn't, they did the best they could with what they had. I mean, going back to your comment, listener, about the tampons in the guy's bathroom. Thomas Jefferson never in a million years would he have ever thought that was something that he had to deal with or had to moderate through a policy decision. And so
Correct.
we have all these those kinds of issues that you cannot predict 250 years later.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
eventually, if you want to talk about, from where they are to where we are now to where in 250 years we'll be, and you see this a lot in science fiction, but, where AI is, like, what are the ethical things surrounding AI? You know, it, are we going to try to regulate AI in our Constitution? Because you try to explain to a founding father even what is AI, compared to to now, and then 250 years from now. Um, you know, I mean, they weren't flying back then. If the founding fathers saw a plane, they'd be like, "Holy crap, what is that?" And then you take in 250 years from now, I'm sure that we'll be spacefaring and looking at different planetary explorations and stuff. So
Or some
we're
method of travel that we don't even understand yet or can't comprehend.
exactly. So when you're talking about talking about the different things that you're bringing up, it's we don't know what's going to happen in 250 years, but it's one of those things to where we have to look at providing everybody their rights and what they want, and it's something that we definitely want to look at from, like, a foundational perspective. But we want to talk about you know everybody together as a whole country, a whole community, as the human race, what it means to what it means to belong to this country, what it means to be a part of it, and then everybody's responsibilities, what they have as far as a responsibility to each other, as well as everyone's rights.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're not trying to trash the Constitution. We're just saying that it is in desperate need of an update.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be a sacred document that we all cling to and that lawmakers cling to as the only answer to uh, to government policy and how people should be governed. Um, and then in it, Matt talked about going into different stuff, and in later seasons, future seasons, we have a lot to talk about, a lot to
oh yeah,
discuss. Again, um, like you said, to live in and what what we want our society to look like moving forward,
yeah.
and how we want to be.
No, and that's the we want to bring in people from all across the spectrum, historians, activists, everyday citizens. This isn't about exclusion. This is about inclusivity. Left, right, up, down, sideways, frontways, backwards. We're all here together. We're all on the same rock. We're all flying through space at some stupid amount of speed, and eventually we're going to have to deal with. Um, we're going to have to live with each other. That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But this isn't just a legal project. That it's a human one. It's about getting interpreting those those values into a document, for everyone. So
Yeah, and all this starts with curiosity and a conversation, and that's what we're trying to do here.
exactly. So I think you get to start this one, Josh. About
Oh, yeah.
talk about the
So
Constitution a little.
yeah, let's talk about the Constitution, written in 1787.
Okay,
Um, so it's been a minute,
this has been a few
uh,
days, few weeks.
and and it was written in the context of where the world was landowning white men and muskets.
I
Uh,
mean, they did a
if,
pretty
if
good job
yeah, when we
of.
boil it down, right?
Yeah.
And there was a few other things going on, but I feel like that's hits the main points.
Yeah, no, I mean, and at the time when everything was a monarchy, it was kind of like it was crazy. It was revolutionary that you're gonna have representation from a bunch of different people, across the board. 13 different states is what they were looking at, but it was still limited. It didn't protect everyone. It didn't. There's no way that they could have foreseen the future. I mean, when they wrote this stuff, it was based on 13 colonies. Okay, we have 50 states, so you're talking about 3 to 4 times as much representation there. So you're it's a massive, massive change from when this was written to where we are today. Even from a perspective of like we said, technology. It used to take days, if not weeks, to get information from one place to another. And now you get it instantly. So that's one of the things as far as a future perspective is concerned. You know, we want to try to bring all of that information up to and say, hey, we have a lot more information about today that we didn't have back then. So let's work that in.
Yeah, and if you go back and you look at founders' writings and different things, and you can see an overarching theme where I think above all else, because of their lived experience and what they had been through with England and everything else, they feared tyranny.
Oh yeah,
But the only tyranny that they knew at the time was through government, through
yeah,
through that English monarchy.
oh yeah,
They didn't see things like corporations and conglomerates and NGOs and billionaires that have more money than God. They didn't see that stuff coming.
yeah. And
Uh,
the
Go ahead.
no, and I was just gonna say, and the crazy thing is those people, those founding fathers, they and you can read it in a lot of their works. One of the things that they wholeheartedly believed in was public virtue. John Adams, he said that republics, which is what we are, is they require it. They require to have they're required to have a public virtue, meaning that you your overall intent is to help the public, is to see the public get better. But unfortunately, that has been traded over the past 250 years with profit. Instead of virtue and helping the public, now it's all about, how can I make more money?
Yeah, and I might be paraphrasing here, but I think Adams went so far as to say that democracy could not survive without public virtue. And I think I
Oh
I
yeah,
I s- I think that still rings true today. And it's
yeah.
it's a it's a large part of the problem, and a lot of where the anger and the hate is coming from is that we don't feel uh, represented by and served by the people that are running our government.
I mean,
Um,
there's a reason why there's colleges named after a lot of people. Why there's libraries, why there's civic centers, why there's all of these things named after people because they donated some of their wealth or donated their time or their part of their estate to these institutions to make everybody, to help everybody, to make things better, to, you know, move forward, the population in a direction. So, you know, it's we need to go back to that.
yeah. And at this point, we sort of treat the Constitution as some sort of sacred document, a sacred text.
Oh yeah,
It's like it feels like the end all be all, or the ultimate way to end the argument.
yeah.
And we've said it before, but it was always meant to be a living document. I don't know how we got away from that. I don't know, why it was like after the Constitution was enshrined that that was it. Obviously there's been 27 amendments over 250 years. I don't think that covers the breadth of the change in our society over that time.
Definitely not. And like I said before, with Jefferson, every generation should have rewritten it. He saw it as a civic responsibility, like that you have to do this because it's a requirement, and that's why they left a path to do the amendment, to do the amendments of the Constitution. The only thing is I don't think that they saw or they foresaw the fact that we'd have 50 states instead of 13. When you're talking two-thirds of the states, when you have 13, it's seven, I believe, right? Seven or
It's a lot easier to get seven people to agree than it is
yeah,
32.
to, exactly. So, That needs to be looked at and seeing how that can be improved. But it's something that we need to look at the fundamentals of how do we make this, how do we make it, I don't even want to say easier, but how do we make it more accessible for people to do this rather than just, oh, well, this isn't going to happen. And well, the Constitution has this and it says this. So obviously that's all that we can do. And we can't, we're not going to change it. I think that we
Yeah.
need to take a hard look at that.
Yeah, and it's almost like nobody wants to ask the question of, why haven't we really tried hard at this to try and change the Constitution, to try and the
Because change
keep
is hard.
our yeah
No,
keep our keep government policy moving in the direction and at the pace that society is changing. And that in and of itself, even as I'm saying that, that's a difficult, daunting task to even think about that, because you think about how the pace at which things have changed over the last, just in the last 120 years. It's incredible. But it doesn't mean that I don't think it means that the endeavor is not. It's the juice is worth the squeeze. And that's how we should be looking at it.
well, not only that, it's you got. If you look at our founding fathers, they weren't going over to England to try to change policies in England because there's an entrenched power over in England. So power resists evolution. If you have an unchecked amount of power, you don't want that to change. If you have the ability to have control over things, you definitely don't want to lose that control. So changing things is very hard when there are absolute powers that are holding that. So power resists evolution, but it doesn't mean that you stop trying. It doesn't mean that it didn't eventually change over there. It just took a revolution of the people over there, in all of the different countries, whether it was, through war, or whether it was civic, or however it managed to happen. The change will eventually happen, whether you want it to or not. It just pushes forward eventually. You might not like the way that the change happens, but it's going to, one way or another.
Right. Yeah, you look at it from a technological, cultural, economic standpoint. We've updated, we're constantly updating all those things, and those things are all in constant flux. And I'm not saying that our Constitution should be in constant flux, but I feel like, yeah, there should be some change moving along with those other parts of our society.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that gap is growing, from where the Constitution, when it was original, to where it is now. I mean, we worked in IT. You're changing stuff every year, if not more. Based on the new technologies that are coming out.
Every day, if you want to really piss people off.
Yeah, really, it is one of those things. So, you know that 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 change is, it is very much so. We need to have it. We need to move the Constitution, forward. And yes, viewer, I absolutely agree with you. It is to afford the government certain powers, very much so, not to make them greater, but it's also to protect the people. That's the whole purpose of the Constitution, was meant to protect the people, to afford them, quote unquote, inalienable rights. It's one of those things to where you have to have representation of the people and make sure that not one person or not a group of people have unchecked power, and that is what the Constitution is for. The problem is when it was written, the founding fathers didn't know what was going to be done. Again, we mentioned this: corporations coming in, lobbying people, paying money to get what they want, versus
Corporations are people.
what the actual people have happened to them. So we don't want to erase it. We want to update it. We want to change it. We want to renew it. and bring it together.
Yeah, we want to start a conversation about how do we close this gap? I mean, and how, like you were saying, how do we make it more for for the people? I think what you were trying to think exactly the way that you put it, where you have this unchecked power, and and I think the point of giving government that power, at least in a democracy and from a societal perspective, is that they're going to take that power and they're going to use it to do something good for everyone, not for themselves, not for the people that they like. That it reaches the most the most people as possible, and if they're not doing something like that with that power, they shouldn't have it.
I
And
agree.
so it's like, how do we close those gaps to where we make it to where people are protected and that they're taken care of, and they're getting the things that they need,
Hmm.
to to live happy, and better lives.
Definitely. Yeah. No, it's tough. And to your question, what legislation are you not getting that you want? It's not about a legislation that I want. It's what I want is for the people to be heard. I want for the people to be able to affect something that they can't because, and we have some things here, and I'm unfortunately, Josh, I'm going to take the first one away from you. Um,
Mm.
you know, uh, right now, our Constitution does not protect against economic tyranny. Billionaires can buy democracy. It's not freedom. Okay, when you have that amount of money, you can do whatever you want, however you want, and get away with it. Use and abuse people, take advantage of whatever loophole you want. That's not freedom. That is not freedom for the people. It's not freedom for anybody. It gives freedom to the people with all the money, and unfortunately, that doesn't work for me, and I would hope that I'm not alone in saying that. I hope that
Yeah.
there are other people that don't like that.
Yeah. What I, like you said, wealth is power in this country.
Yep.
And if you have enough of it, you can, to a certain extent, you can do whatever you want, and there's very little consequences, if any,
Hmm.
for you with that power. That's completely unaccountable.
Yep.
Um, I and I'm definitely not okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, we have laws in place that protect our rights, from government tyranny, but we don't have rights in place to protect us from economic tyranny, from corporations, from billionaires, from people that all they want is more. And in order to get that, they think that they have to take something away from everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, it's
And I'm not okay with that.
it's like it's essentially like a dragon that hoards money in their mountain, and it's theirs. It's not anybody else's.
Right.
Um,
And
but
they earned it, and they should get to do whatever they please with it. And
they
so if
earned
that's
it.
burn it in Times Square,
Yep.
that's fine with them.
Yep. So, and no, I don't have an axe to grind against the rich. I don't have an axe to grind against them. I think that with the tools that they have to their you know available to them, I think that if they took a civic responsibility amongst the constituents and or the people that they work with, um, I think it would be fine. But unfortunately, those aren't the ones that you hear about. Those people that donate a lot of money or that are helping people, that they're not the big ones out there, and I understand it. Got to make those numbers get bigger. I get it. The bigger the number, the cooler you are. So, but yeah, it's definitely something that there's. I'm throwing this out there. There's enough money within the ultra wealthy to, quote unquote, end world hunger. That's a dumb quote, to be honest with you. because there's a lot more involved in than just throwing money. You got logistics, you got distribution, you got people being able to use that, and that's what I'm talking about. You can sit here and throw out these blanket statements of, oh, we're gonna end world hunger, or we're gonna everybody gets a house, or everybody whatever. You can't do those things without you know a
Resources.
solid policy and or resources of how you're going to do that. So for
And you
me,
got to make it fair for everybody.
well, for me, those are false flag responses. I don't like the fact that you can just say something like that, and then it's just like, oh, well, you should do this. It's like, okay, show me how, and then there's nothing following that. There's no follow up to, well, show me how. How do you get food to a remote tribe in the middle of Russia, that's in Siberia? How do you get food there? How do you get it to Alaska? How do you get it to the middle of Africa? How do you get it to the mountains in South America? Like, it's people say things just to make themselves feel better, and to me, that's not. You got to look at the problem. In IT, it's one of those things. When we did incident response, it would be, a whole system would go down. Somebody'd get ransomed or whatever, and the CEO comes in and says, well, why isn't it working? Well, because it's down. We got to bring everything back up. Well, how long is it going to take? It's going to take time. It's going to take days, if not weeks. Well, that doesn't work. Well, I'm sorry, but you didn't invest the money in the infrastructure. You didn't invest the time and the effort to get things set up to where it would work properly, or that you had those contingencies in place. So now it's
And
going
then
to
it
take
would be
time.
secure.
So,
Yeah.
and yelling and screaming and saying a bunch of stuff is not going to change anything.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to change it is by making a change, doing something to make it different. Yelling and screaming at people does not make a change. Nothing gets fixed by yelling and screaming and telling people, well, they need to do this and you should do that. And you got to have a plan. You got to work through it. You got to look at the details and figure out how that gets done. So
Yeah.
that that's what we want to do. We want to look at the
And we want to
foundation.
stay focused on policy. How do we
Policy.
actually affect real change
Correct.
in, in our society,
Yeah,
on a small scale or on a large scale? We're trying to talk. That's what we're trying to talk through.
exactly. You want to go with the next one?
Yeah. Um. So we have all these rights laid out in the Constitution, specifically the Bill of Rights. I mean, there's some in the articles as well, but um the unfortunately, over the years, and it's probably always been this way. Hard to say. From a microcosm perspective of what was going on in 1820, but that rights are unequally protected. Um, Free speech doesn't mean a whole lot if you're shadow banned on whatever platform that you're using, and your traffic is getting funneled away from your site, or
Mm-hmm.
if you get banned uh, off of Facebook for saying that you don't want tampons in the boys' bathroom.
Yeah.
Um, and then on the other side of it, if you actually have to go in and fight it, if you don't have any resources, you don't have any wealth, you can't afford a lawyer. Lawyers are expensive. You you don't really get a voice in your fight for whether it's your speech, um and your whatever equal protection that you want to talk about that you feel is being violated.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's definitely true. Your right to vote means little if your district is gerrymandered or drowned out by corporate lobbying. Like, that's not representation. That's not you know your rights aren't being protected. You don't really have free speech if your speech doesn't, if you can't be heard or you're not allowed to be heard.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is civic virtue versus market logic. Um, I personally feel that most of the civic virtue and people's willingness to participate in society or in helping one another has been replaced by market logic.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially the more time you spend in the corporate world, which Matt and I have done quite a bit of, you uh, you get the sense that people look at a situation from almost a binary perspective, where if it's legal and it's profitable, everything's fine. Nobody looks at it from, hey, morally, should I do this? Is it okay to treat somebody this way? Is it okay to, tank another person's stock because I have the money to do so, or ruin someone's life, or whatever the case may be? They don't even ask the question because to them it doesn't matter, because as long as it's within my legal right to do so, I'm going, and my company or I'm going to profit from it, it's it's okay.
Yep. Yeah. And that's not a republic at all. That's it's like a casino, and the house always wins, and that's not it's not fair to the people.
No, it's not. A the next thing that the one of the flaws that we find in the that we're looking at in the Constitution is it doesn't really account for modern realities. You have all these problems today in society. Digital privacy, people getting doxxed, people getting swatted, having their personal information stolen. Um, Climate collapse, pick an issue of today's day and age, and it has no context inside of the Constitution, because the Constitution wasn't written for those realities.
Yeah, definitely. It's I mean, for some of us that are older, it's like using a rotary phone manual to try to run a quantum network. It doesn't. Some things just don't add up. So we need to make sure that we look at where we're at today, and we account for the things that they didn't account for 230 plus years ago.
Yeah, and next, the Constitution, the way it was written, as far as changes go, it it has basically, it prevents change. It hedges its bets against change, because now, we talked about this a little bit earlier. There's 50 states, 32 of them have to ratify any amendment, and getting there, 32 distinctly different groups of people who all have competing priorities and needs to agree on anything. I you know you and this is basically what's happened, is you might as well just give up,
Yep.
like, because there's no, in reality, there's no way to get that many people on board with any sort of change.
Correct. And if people can't change the system and help it evolve, then then who can who's going to be able to do this? If we vote for something, and then um, that doesn't there's no way for us to affect change to it. That's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, hopefully, I don't, and people will agree with us that these aren't fringe ideas. I mean, like, when you really start breaking them down and you start thinking about them, they seem kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Um, and not that they demand a response, but that there should be a response, and there should be a level of civic outrage, and and a desire to change the way things are now, the status quo. A
Definitely.
civ-
So I mean, from a from that perspective, that's what we're here for. A civic revival, a response to these things that we can look at as a whole and figure out, you know, from the bottom up, figure out how to resolve some of these questions or these things that don't represent the people. But
Yeah.
but with that in mind, let's imagine what could a rewritten constitution look like. What are we going to have in that constitution? What what things do we want to make sure are spoken about and are accounted for?
Yeah. And I think we need to start, because of where our society is at, where we're at from a resource and wealth perspective, that there's certain things that we should be held accountable and held responsible for guaranteeing to each other. Um, and I talked a little bit about it earlier, where we're talking about dignity rights,
Yeah.
um, and that those should be that should be a floor for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets those, no questions asked. There's yeah, 50% of the wealth in this country is held by the top 1%. As far as I'm concerned, and people can argue with me all day long about how much is too much,
Oh yeah.
but that's too much, and I'm not okay with it. I I don't know what again, I don't know what the answer to that yet is, and
And
that's
that's
why
why
we're
we're
having
having
this
this discussion.
this
That's
conversation.
Yep.
But yeah, people should be people there shouldn't be 930 people in my town that I live in that are homeless, that can't have a place to live, that can't get health care, that can't get digital access, they can't get access to the web, to information.
Yeah.
Like, every time I think about that, it breaks my heart, and I wish I was doing more.
And and that's the thing about it is when we're talking about this stuff and just like I mentioned earlier, we say these things, housing, healthcare, education, digital access, those types of things. What do they mean? What does that mean for the individual person? What does that mean for a family? What does that mean for a child? What does that mean for everyone out there? And it's there's certain things. Just or for example, you can look at you know uh, media companies, cable companies like Spectrum, Comcast, um, uh, CenturyLink, all of your big companies. They actually lobby local governments to prevent other companies from coming into those areas, to where they essentially isolate those areas to where the only access that can be provided is what is through their company.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
pay
think,
for a monopoly.
yeah, so it's essentially monopoly, and that's not what we want. That's that's not freedom, and that's what we're talking about. Whenever you have the ability of the creation of monopolies, to control certain things. It's not what this it's not what this government was founded for. That's not what this country was founded on. So we want to take it to where the Constitution has the ability to create certain infrastructures that can't be bought or inherited, that are part of the that are given to the people. And I already know the argument there. We want smaller government, not bigger government. Well, there's different ways that a government can grow. And that's what we need to talk about in the Constitution, about what is bigger government versus what is smaller government. Um, People have differing views about what a bigger government is versus a smaller government. But when you try to put a policy in place, and it creates more government oversight and more government overreach, you don't want that. You want to keep the rights to the people for them to say what the government has the ability to do and not do. And that is that fine line that the founding fathers tried to walk. You want to keep it to where that's the reason of the creation of the Constitution. We had the Articles of Confederation, and it essentially it essentially hamstrung our government to where they couldn't actually do anything for the people. So they needed to create the Constitution so that they could bring everybody together, so we could move forward as a nation. And that's what we need to look at. We need to make sure that we're walking that line between what is, too much government and what is not enough government.
Yeah, I think big government and small government is just another one of those things we say. It's not really a
Correct.
binary choice.
Correct.
There's different ways that looks, and yeah, and again, I feel like this is another one of those situations where if we get enough smart people in the room, like we can come up with something completely different that to create something new and better.
Exactly.
Where we have rules and we have policies in place that future proof uh, policy for generations to come,
Mm-hmm.
and not just preserve power and wealth and resources and where they are now.
Exactly. It could be an actual social contract that is built for everyone, that benefits everyone, that helps us progress together as a society for the better of everyone. That is the goal, is to lift everyone up.
Yeah, I mean, and looking at what's going on in the media and in society right now. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that are very angry with our government at so many different levels,
Oh yeah.
and personally, I absolutely believe they have the right to be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part of me, a big part of me, that wants to grab my pitchfork and head out with them, you know.
Exactly.
Um, but I think I think a better way to try and steer this is, okay, instead of looking at the government as my enemy, how do we change government? How do we affect some positive change and turn it back into, or let's just say, let's turn it into a tool, and a tool
Mm-hmm.
for all of us, a tool for the people to to make things better.
Exactly. And that's the.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna. Well, no, I thought of that. So that that quote from Ronald Reagan, the nine scariest words you'll ever hear from a government representative. The we are from the government and we're here to help.
And we're here to
He
help.
said
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
said, like, that's the absolute worst thing that you could ever hear.
Exactly.
I like and I think there's a lot of truth in that
Oh yeah.
today, but I don't think that it has to be that way. We just have
It.
to figure out how to change it.
I was going to say it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
Period. There's no other extension of that. So it shouldn't be that way. So
Yeah.
the only way to change that is to, you know, affect change. And and I know, growing up and with the way stuff was, all politicians are the same. Nothing's going to change. They're going to continue doing what they're doing, and we're going to continue. We're meant to work, and they're meant to, work with their buddies and do this, and nothing's going to change. Well, why not? We
Yeah.
could change
Well,
that, literally.
yeah. My thought process, earlier in life has always kind of been like, well, hey, if I can figure out how to game the system enough, I
Exactly.
can I can generate enough for me and mine,
Yep.
while and get enough to be happy, fairly happy and comfortable. And at some point, I don't know when, that's changed to, like, no, man, like, it's not just about me. This is about, like, we have so many resources. Like, why can't life be better for everyone? And I think
Correct.
that it can. We just have to figure out a path forward.
Figure out what that means.
Yeah.
No, and that's I agree. You you know you take in you replace that despair, with vision, and all that cynicism with hope. You take and you move things forward. That's kind of what we're having this conversation about, and what our goal is you know the civic revival that we want. That's what we're talking about, is replacing those, and looking forward to a better future for everyone.
Yeah. And that's the invitation that we're making for to everyone that decides to listen to this and be part of the conversation. Um, no no idea is too stupid in my book, because I got a lot of them. Like like
Well,
too
see
many
that,
to even write down.
but
You
th- but
know.
but that's what it is. Who was it? Einstein. Whenever he was stuck on a problem, he would go for walks. I mean, I'm pretty sure he spent most of his time walking around, just because that was the way that he was able to think and process things, and do that stuff. And it takes someone just hearing something that could spark that, oh, wait a second, no, wait, that's not dumb, that actually might work. And then you can go from there. And that's why, we want the conversations. We want people to come in. We want to work through this stuff. So that's the future that we're talking about. So
Yeah. Um, yeah, and so we've kind of touched on this before, but we are not looking at this from the perspective of left versus right, or us versus them. We are trying to stay curious about everything, and how this could work, and how uh, how to create something greater. How do we work together to get that done?
exactly. And this isn't a conclusion. You know, this is an invitation for everyone. We're going to be doing this every Sunday. We're going to start with the Constitution. We're going to have talks about the certain pieces, and we're going to limit our conversations to those pieces. Like I said, we don't want to get derailed. Like our first episode is going to be on the preamble and walking through the preamble, and we'll have as many episodes as we need to have to walk through that, and touch on every sentence, what it means, if it needs to be changed, if words need to be updated. And we're going to do that through the entire Constitution, from the preamble all the way down to the 27th Amendment, looking at everything and seeing what there is, that whether it's something that was missed, whether it could be done better, whether it's fine the way it is, whether it's clearing up,
Or we don't need it anymore.
yeah,
Yeah.
whether it's clearing up, text, like what exactly does this word mean? Is there a better way to say this that could not be misconstrued? Um, you know, what do you think? What rights do you wish were in there and were actually protected? What is it that we need to do to create that better foundation for
Yeah.
our country?
Yeah, what would you change in the Constitution? What could you see, or things that you've experienced or that have happened in your life that you feel like, what if you were marginalized, or you were victimized, or however you feel about that, how would you want to change things moving forward? And let's have that conversation.
And again, it's, we're talking about actual change, policy change. We have to dig into the details. We're not talking about wide, changing things. And we're also not talking about, like a viewer had said, about tampons in the boys' restrooms. I mean, that's not a federal, that's not a constitutional thing. We're talking about the foundation of what we're going to build off of. The conversations that we want to have are about those specific things. We're not getting into the everyday rigmarole. But join us September the 28th, I believe. September the 28th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We will continue this. We'll start off with doing the preamble, and we will welcome everybody to to join in the conversation of what things mean. We're going to, obviously, we're going to have our social media accounts. More than likely, we're going to have a Reddit that is going to document all of these things. A subreddit that has all this information that we talk about, and we'll keep it updated, get people's input to where we can work through this document, make it a living document, and see what changes, what the people want, what everyday people, what people that work every day, people that whether it's a lawyer, a plumber, hell, a politician, a retail worker. Everybody gets a say in this. Everybody gets to vote. Everybody gets to have a say in how our country is, the foundation of our country.
Yeah. And as you're thinking about this, I'd ask you to ask yourself, what would a system that truly values you really look like? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what would that look like for you? And think of it from that perspective, and stay curious about it, because I truly feel like together, we can ratify a future that we all deserve.
Yes,
That's going to be good to all of us.
I agree. And with that, we will see you. I'll have more information out on the channel. We'll have a Twitter set up. We'll get some information out there. But first episode, September the 28th, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Be right back here. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Great
Be
talking to
good
you.
to each other.
Yeah. Make good choices.